Hey guys, it's Carnifex doing another video today. I'm not wearing the same shirt because I'm a schmuck. I'm wearing the same shirt because it's just a little bit after I made the other video. So here we are. I'm going to try as hard as I can to just knock out all the DPS here. It's entirely possible it may need to be in two chunks here, but I will try my best. If any of this coloring doesn't make sense to you, go and watch the Commander video, because of the Commander video I go over why this is. And Commanders are entirely, they're so much more different from any other class. You'd want to watch that just to kind of get all of that. Anyway, basically I'm going to try and run through these traits real quick and try and tell you which ones are good and why. And basically, again, with your Combat Master, there's two ways you could use a Combat Master. You could use it as like a lifesteal-oriented tank that's still putting out more damage than a typical tank. Or you could use them as pure of a DPS as you can. If you really, really want it hybrids tend to not usually work as well. You would really need to have everything going. You would need to have Graug Hunter, the quick healer, and bloodthirsty, and tough in order for, you would need all of them really for it to work as a pure lifesteal oriented tank. So kind of running something hybrid, makes a degree of sense. You're just having one trait that's more around survival, since it is a melee unit, is therefore going to be subject to more damage. But the thing to remember with all that is, I mean, abilities you can't dodge. Abilities just crank out so much damage. It's either going to kill me or not. I feel like it's better just to go balls to the wall, because this is, I'm trying to remember, always give this disclaimer. This right now is for existing PvE content, not for what I think will come out later. So, starting off, Deadly. Deadly's awesome. It boosts his attack. He has a really high attack. If you go to the class stats, he has the second highest attack of all the classes after Marksman. So, attack is good. Killer Instinct. I went over this with commanders like Killer Instinct. It's going to do a consistent rate of damage that usually results in killing them faster than if you had Assassinate. That's a short version. If you want the full explanation, it was in the Orc Commander video. Go watch it already. Slayer of Orcs, racial abilities are not good in the content I think will come out, but for the PvE specific content that it currently exists where you're fighting orcs, it's awesome. Honed Weapons. This is not as good against characters with less armor, because it can be overkill. And it's still not as good as just a flat attack increase or doing this bonus damage. It's not as high as 25%. It's just not as good. Piercing Strikes, bonus true damage. Means it's not affected by mitigation. We like that. Shattering Strikes, you want a single unit with Shattering Strikes. And I like Shattering Strikes more than I like Sapping Strikes, because of the consistency that you get. And because it's subject to the armor and ability defense of your target. So if you're facing a high DPS target, they're going to have lower armor for the most part, and so you're not reducing that much. Ability defense is higher across the board on average. It also has a lower, it's just so circumstantial, whereas Shattering Strike is just so consistent. Because again, like, and I talked about this in the other video too, if you have Sapping Strikes, you may have units like Castamere that don't do any damage via ability power. They simply don't. Celebrant Board doesn't do very much. Lady Marwyn doesn't do very much. You know, it's you're better off going with the, although with Lady Marwyn that actually kind of works out to a point where it still probably makes more sense right now. But anyway, that's a personal preference thing. Sapping Strikes is probably on the same level, but this is for Combat Master specifically, who does more of his damage via basic attack, because since his attack does heal himself, it doesn't output quite as much damage. Opportunist. He doesn't have that great of crit rating. If you look at the rankings, right, the crit ratings is it's like Tracker and Marksman are definitely the best. Yeah, again, he's like a notch above Commander. It's good. It's not crazy good, which is why it's acceptable, but it's not ideal. Precise, it boosts accuracy, which yeah, like you don't need accuracy for basic abilities. If you haven't watched my or just overview videos, like I've gone over that. Accuracy only applies to base attacks. Abilities always hit every single time. Relentless is good. Relentless is is made better if you have Graug Hunter, because it's more frequent bonus damage that is just based off the enemy's total HP. So that's good. It's almost like a silver if they have Graug Hunter, and they basically should have Graug Hunter, right? If this doesn't make sense to you, you didn't watch the other videos. And I'm trying to keep this quick. Vault of Strikes, bonus damage on basic attacks, weakening aura, working in 70 attack. These don't stack. So if your tank has this, don't have anyone have this. Doesn't make sense. And that is part of the theory crafting stuff. Basically, I think they're going to fight as a group against enemy heroes, in which case those things would stack and that wouldn't do anything. All the ally boosting stuff, again, like it helps, but orc stats are stronger than hero stats. So would you rather help 4 things go up, would you rather have the attack power go up 40% on things that are smaller, or go 30% on you? There you go. Agile, he has some dodge. It's not that bad. He's the second one, but the tracker's just so much higher. It might not be as bad as I'm making it look right now, but it's not very good. Bloodthirsty, again, if you had a combo there of things where like all the healing received, like that could work, but so rare. He doesn't do that much damage via his ability powers. Fine, but it's not. The only person with killer ability power is the freaking Destroyer. Combat Master is worst after the Commander, so it's besides the Commander. So you don't want that. Fast Runner just doesn't make any sense. Quick Healer, again, a Quick Healer is definitely the best of these, but it just requires so many other things, and it's really just for PvE content. You want someone that can crank out damage. You want someone who can soak it, and it's so hard to find one of these Combat Masters that can soak it. You don't want any of the armor stuff because you just want to crank out damage, because hopefully your tank is doing a good enough job tanking that your Combat Master is basically not taking damage unless it's right at the end, because your tank is like just dying and you're about to clear it. Assassinate is not as good as Killer Instinct, and it can actually it's not reliable. You can't bank on it. All right, we're gonna go to the next one. I'm not gonna belabor the point. Okay, let's keep going. Destroyer is very different. Now, if you watch my orc overview video, I recommend you don't have a single destroyer because their stats are so garbage. I have one that is 3-star. It's now level 30. I'm using it only for missions because it was one of the first. I think it was the first one I got with Slayer of Orcs. And I was like, oh my god! And it had staggering strikes. So I was like, hey, that sounds like good for everything. And Bloodthirsty, and just didn't realize how little damage you do. And Barbed Armor, I was like, well, yeah, he's a melee unit, but it's like, really, no, this guy shouldn't exist. He's on my job quality until I can replace him. I just say that to show you that, we all make mistakes. So here's the thing. Basically, he is a nuker, right? He has this bomb. And the problem with PvE is that really it doesn't take that long to clear the waves, right? Most of us have a Galadriel, or if you don't have it, you have because most of us don't have a Galadriel, but most of us have a Shelob, right? I hate you. that can kind of clear out the mobs pretty effectively. So it's just not the hurting multiple people element of the destroyer's ability isn't really service because everything's already dead, or it's basically dead, and so like it's doing such a small percentage of its potential damage. He basically doesn't have an ability. He basically has a single target ability. The significance of it is oriented around it being an AoE move, so it loses a lot of its value for me. Anyway, done with that. Destroyer's not that great, but if you're going to build a destroyer, you want cunning. Cunning is great. Killer instinct, it doesn't matter what the damage or whatever, it doesn't matter the stats, so we like that. Slayer of orcs, good for everything against orcs. Piercing strike, sharp mind, more, but he has great ability pen. This might get to the like overkill ability pen range, but if you're going with these guys, you were going with them being a mega nuker, and you do need to just do that. Oh, sapping strike should be in there. How are these two not swapped? This should, I'm not perfect, guys, and I don't care that you see my imperfection. I tried to swap these things out in a reasonable way, but here we go. Getting that right, getting it tight. This is here just because, again, like, that's all he does is ability damage. It's still, again, like, against units that don't have that much ability defense, it doesn't do that much, but it still does something, and that's all he does. One trick pony, so everything's around the trick. All this other stuff, same information. Deadly isn't in there because he basically has no attack damage. His basic attacks are flimsy. Assassinate is like more valuable on him because your overall damage input is going to be lower, and if he gets to have like a second round of bomb, right, then it might happen at a point to where it knocks out either all or a chunk of the 20% that's left. You know, it might already be at 13 and it kills him, or it might be at like, you know, like 5% and it kills him. So it's just not. So even how he works makes Assassinate less valuable because you don't get to potentially use Assassinate for the full duration or even like the initial point of use because you blew through it. Because even if you're at like, let's say like 25%, let's say he knocks down to 15, well, you just missed 5% of damage where Assassinate could have worked. I mean, it's still better than like leaving it at 20. It's better than his move just doing less damage, but it makes Assassinate less good because it has less opportunity to work. Oh yeah, we're definitely doing all these. Woo, baby. Okay, marksman and trackers are exactly the same. Okay? They're exactly the same except for one thing. Trackers has agile on there, right? Agile, hostile. I'm going to do this one more time. Look, they're exactly the same. Okay. Except for agile. Now, the reason why marksmen don't need marksmen are my favorite DPS. They do so much damage. They do so much damage to me when they're the enemies. They're very similar to the combat master as well. Deadly, Killer Instinct, Slayer of Orcs. I had one with this, and then it had freaking Ravenous. And I still haven't been able, it was an Overlord, and it had all those, and I'm still crying. I haven't been able to bring myself to kill it, because if it had Graug Hunter instead of Ravenous, it would have been my most second, like tied for most optimized orc. Makes me very sad. Opportunist is another one that's jumped up here because the marksman and the marksman and the tracker have really high crit ratings already. Marksman doesn't have as high a chance to crit as a tracker, but the numbers are so good that it's worth. It's definitely a more valuable trait for them. Piercing strikes, does shattering strikes. We've talked about all this stuff. The chance to stun, you don't want more than one person with it. It's not bad as an overall utility, but frankly with the marksman, this would be the last one I want it on. Because And again, this is something talking about my theory crafting where I'm assuming that there will be group orc fighting. And so you could potentially overlap staggering strikes with other ones, or in like the situations where you have like Lady Marwyn or someone else who's stunning, or if he stuns while Saruman's blinding, like they're still effectively unable to do anything. I don't love it, and I definitely don't want to use it on my mark, so I'm going to use it on like my Trickster or something like that if I happen to be rolling that. Helps do stuff. Agile's not there because hopefully he has relatively good dodge, but you just don't need to use that. You're in the back line. If you're to the point to where he's getting hit by like melee units who should have been at least wiped by that point, you were gonna lose with or without Agile, and you had a better chance of winning by having these traits. So they really just have you on leveling or starring or something. Okay, so the one difference, right, is Agile is here on trackers because they are in the front line. There is the chance of them taking some like early unit damage from like mobs if you don't have a Galadriel, or if your Shelob isn't good enough to wipe out mobs like right off the bat because you've saved it for that round. And they have really good dodge. They have really high dodge. So I put that up here. That is also, again, something that we're like thinking of what's going to happen in the future. But that would be the one survivability-oriented thing that I would throw on a tracker. Other than that, this is a balls to the walls assassin type damage doer. Crits. That's part of the reason why their accuracy isn't as good, because they are just planning on them critting so often. You can't affect the crit chance, but their crit chance is already pretty stinking high. So that crit rating, I mean, on that crit rating, I would need to have access to the equations to determine if Opportunist is better than Killer Instinct. You know what? I'm going to officially put this in there. This is going to be our 4-part gold tier because, yeah, I can't tell which of those two would be better without literally just having the formula in front of me. The others, the numbers are so far apart and the crit chance is lower, so I feel really comfortable with that. But honestly, at this point, like, crit rating is that's probably around the same. I would maybe give a slight edge to Killer Instinct, but yeah. Everything else is the same that we just talked about with the trackers. Again, Graug Hunter, you want, again, if you skip the other videos, you don't know why I'm skipping this part because I already talked about it. You want 1 or 2 DPS with Healer's Bane. That's it. Everything else should be Graug Hunter. I leave Cursed Aura there because if you magically just... you have the perfect tank who has Graug Hunter. You do want, if this future content I think will come out does exist in the way I think it will, you will want at least 1 unit in your party that has Cursed Aura in it. I just think it's best to have it on the tank. Probably. I'll do my theory crafting video in a little bit. Not today. I gotta call it a day for today. I've put out too many videos today. Guys, we just got Tricksters. Dude, it's like taking as much time as I did with the Commanders. So now I'm gonna say stuff over and over again. Right. So I literally just got a better Trickster. Instead of Cunning, it had something else. I can't remember what it was, but it was a good one. It was a good one. So that needs to be updated. And this is another 3-star level 50. Like, I haven't updated that crap because it just didn't matter. It doesn't matter to me now. I've putting it on paper just helped me figure it out. And I'm done. So with Tricksters, minor differences. Again, Deadly, great. Killer Instinct, great. Slayer of Orcs, great. Hone Weapons, right? Good against the higher armor enemies. There you go. But let's see where we can find. I did put Cutting a little higher because it does have higher ability power than your marksmen and your trackers. So it's not as bad on them. And the main thing is that they're not going to use their ability unless your tank dies. So how you should use your tricksters for PvE, right? If you imagine like farthest away is the enemy champion, then you have your tank, then you have your trickster, and then you have your backline. Because that way, if your tank dies, it runs up to the trickster's ability shortly thereafter gets triggered, and it stuns unless they're unstoppable, and it stuns them. They jump out of harm's way. Now that unit has to cover more space. So again, his ability is also only good against melee. I forgot to mention. Yeah, so it's only really good against melee because otherwise it's never going to come in range with the ranged. You could drop it right on top of them. So if it has the HP to survive it against a range, that's better because it'll give like your tanks time to like get up there. But anyone else hate that they fixed the tricksters and now they can teleport to your guys? That is not as easy, but it's not that bad. All right, guys, dude, we did it. We done. This is going to be the DPS trait video because we did not need more time than that because I'm not about wasting either of our time. Guys, I hope this is fun for you. Leave comments if you have any questions about stuff that you want me to go over. I do have plans for a couple more videos so far. It's just kind of like as I have time to do them. But I'm definitely interested in what you guys want to know more about too, or kind of have questions maybe about why I think certain things about certain stuff. Hit me up. I'll get to it when I can. Probably won't be that long. All right, guys. Well, hey, this has been a 3-shot here, triple shot of Nerd This, and stay classy.